Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. I'm sharing another Halloween kit from Queen Company. This is the Fright Fest kit. It was released last year and was super popular, sold out right away. A small amount of kits were recently restocked, so I wanted to share just a few cards I made using the kit. Let's go ahead and show you everything that's included. So just like all Queen Company kits, there's a great set of dies included. There are either 18 or 19 dies, so you'll have quite a few, and as always, they work great for shaker cards as well as non-shaker cards. But this is a shaker kit, so you will receive the foam and acetate pieces, and they're so easy to use. They're already self-adhesive. You just remove the front and back of all of those foam pieces and then match up with the coordinating acetate. And then there's a fabulous stamp set, lots of great Halloween sentiments, some a little on the spookier side, and then just some real general Halloween sentiments. And this kit does include a full 6x6 paper pad. So there's 24 sheets of double-sided papers. There are 12 different styles, and you'll get 4 of each design. And just like all of Queen Company's paper pads, most of the designs will work for all year round. There are just a couple that are very specific to Halloween. Aren't these fun? Just nice and bright colors. I always enjoy Queen Company's paper collections. Like I said, you'll get 4 of each design, and they're all double-sided papers, so you'll have lots to choose. And then of course there are some fun and unique shaker toppings. So here are just a few of them. There's little bats and cats, little pumpkins. Aren't these fun? And then there are 3 colors of the jelly gems. So these are all nice Halloween colors. You can see the orange, the purple, and then the black. These are all the little jelly gems. And then the last 4 toppings are little tiny stars, and then the yellow pack has some moons in there as well. So sorry, super bright light, so the reflection is just horrible. But there are all of the toppings, and these are very unique to Queen Company's kits. So let's go ahead and get started with card number 1. I'm going to use Sweet Sunday sketch number 234. The kits do not include any colored cardstock, so I will be using quite a bit of cardstock since I love matted layers. So for the background, this is just a nice light gray cardstock, and then I already went and stamped the sentiment on there. I figured if I messed up on the stamping, I could just grab another piece of cardstock or just flip it over. And then all of the other pieces, I'm just layering them a 1/2 inch additional to the measurements that are listed on the sketch. I like a nice thin matted layer. Occasionally I'll do a little bit thicker at a 1/4 inch, but for this card this is all an 1/8 inch. So before I start building the little shaker, I'm going to put that card front onto my card base. And for this card, I'm going to use the spider web. I'm not a fan of spiders, so I decided I'm going to use the spider first, but I can handle the web versus the actual spider. Since this is one of the older Queen Company kits, there are not any coordinating outline dies. So you'll want to make sure the background paper is what you actually want showing through your shaker. So for this card, I'm just using that light purple paper for the background. I filled my little foam piece with all of my toppings, and even though the kit does come with quite a few shaker toppings, I'm also going to add some extra. That way I can really get a good fill on my shaker card. So for this card, I use some additional pearlies. So I attach the acetate to hold all of those toppings in place, and then I'm just using some liquid adhesive to hold that spider web down. And I cut the spider web out of some of Queen Company's glitter paper. I thought having a nice sparkly purple spider web wouldn't be quite as scary. Now I'm just pulling out some different bling. These are all by Queen Company. They sell a huge variety. It's actually hard to select just a couple since there's so many different colors and styles to choose from. But there is my finished card, but then I decided I needed one more thing. So I cut out just a couple little banners using one of the foundation sets by Queen Company. I have them in 2 different colors, and I'm just putting them slightly offset from one another, and then I'll adhere those into that upper right hand corner. Anyone who's watched some of my previous videos know that I have a little bit of an obsession with small banners in the upper corners of my cards. I think it just adds a nice finishing touch. And I did decide to put just a couple more pieces of bling right there by the banners. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 1. So now moving on to card number 2. I used a sketch by Sweet Sunday. This is number 286. And I think this is my favorite card out of all of them that I made. So this is going to be a very Halloween colored card. I'm going to have just the green, black, and orange. Using that green and black stripe paper for the background. And then that next black paper, it has a real tone-on-tone wavy design in the background. Adding just a little strip of some more of the glitter paper just in the orange, and yes, you could see a bunch of pieces cut out of that background piece. I decided to save on some of the paper, and since you're not going to see that very back, it's all covered up, and that way you can stretch that paper just a little bit further. So again, layering everything just in some black cardstock. On this card I'm using the potion. So this one is so much fun. I love this little potion bottle. And I used some of the green polka dot paper, and I cut it diagonally on purpose to kind of make it look like bubbles in the potion, I guess. And I did use the die that comes in the kit to cut out that full green pattern paper potion bottle, but I wanted to have the little stitch line. So I just used one of the foundation dies and just lined it up along that top edge so I could still have that little stitching. I'll go ahead and assemble the rest of my little potion bottle. Have the little cork top and then the little lid, I guess, for the potion bottle. It comes with quite a few different pieces, so you can really customize all of your little shakers. So once I have all of those pieces ready, I'm going to add some of the toppings. And this topping, I think, was discontinued a while ago, but it's like one of the pops or the pearlies. It just has more of a translucent look. It's going to add some liquid adhesive on the outside of the acetate. Hold that little round piece in place. I like to put my acrylic block on top until the glue dries sufficiently. I'm going to go ahead and stamp a sentiment on some white cardstock. This is It's Just a Bunch of Hocus Pocus, which is a lot of fun, especially because Queen Company's brand new Halloween kit they just released is called Hocus Pocus. So this sentiment would actually work with the new kit as well. So I'm just going to layer that on some black cardstock, and I just did my own custom little banner there, cutting a fishtail on the end. And I'm going to have it flush with the right hand side of the card, so I'm not going to have any of that black cardstock on that very edge. Going to pop that up using some foam dimensional tape. And now I get to go ahead and add some embellishments. So again, I'm using some of the foundation dies. I love the stars. There are 3 different stars included in the set, and they all have that faux stitching around them, which is really nice detail. So I just did 2 of the different sizes using some cardstock. Putting 2 of them up by the sentiment and then 1 of them in that lower left hand corner. And now I'll pull out all of the bling. I don't want to add too many colors, so I'm just sticking with some black and green. I have some jelly gems, some of the bubbles, and then also some of the solid goosebumps. I like to add some of the bling on the inside of the stars just for some extra detail. And then the jelly gems are really nice. Nice tiny little bling that you can just put all around there, just like bubbles from the potion, I guess. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 2. So now moving on to card number 3. The sketch is from Operation Right Home. It's number 93. And the sketch is written as a vertical sketch. However, I'm going to use it horizontally instead and change up some of it quite a bit. So for this strip that's going along the background, I'm actually using some of Queen Company's self-adhesive glitter paper. So it doesn't have a lot of shine to it, but it has a little bit, and it's actually nice and thin. Then I'm just using some green cardstock for that background piece that's kind of crooked, and then some more of this black pattern paper that has that wavy design. Layering all of that with some black cardstock, except for that green cardstock layer. I felt it was enough and it didn't need to be super bold in the background. So for this card, I'm using the Boo sentiment. So it's so fun, you can have a little sentiment as a shaker as well. Using some of the trio trims in this beautiful green, has a little bit of a sparkle to it. I just wrapped it around the card twice and then adhering the ends to the back using some of the red line tape. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my card front onto a card base, and I will be using a lot of adhesive, mostly because I have that twine coming around and it has a little bit of thickness to it. So I just want to make sure that it's not going to pop off of the card base. So now I can go ahead and add my shaker foam. So I push that down really snug. I'm going to use some of the jelly gems, and then I have some, these are the little cat. It's one of the toppings that comes in the kit, and then just to add a little more shake to the card, I'm using some of the green rubble. So I'll attach my acetate. I always find it's easiest if you start on one end and then just kind of slowly line it up, because otherwise if you get it a little bit crooked, you're not going to be able to seal in all of those toppings. But it does peel up again if you do it immediately. So I'll let all of that dry, and yes, I did let it dry longer than those few seconds that you saw. I do stop my video quite often. And now for a sentiment, I'm going to use just a small oval cut out in some gray cardstock, and I'm going to have it hanging off of the end of the card. So I'll just trim off that edge, pop it up using some foam dimension. And this is fun is because it's the sentiment is Boo, and then the little stamped one is Open If You Dare. So now I'll tie a little bow with my twine. And then it's time to pull out some of the bling. And again, I'm just sticking with the green and the black. Didn't feel like it needed any other colors on this card. I think I'm using the same bling as I did on the previous card. So I have some of the solid goosebumps, the black jelly gems, and then the green bubbles. I love all of Queen Company's bling, and currently they have several different Halloween colored bling and embellishment bundles for sale. So really good price reduction on those. So if you want to stock up, I will add links in the description box below. So there is my finished card. Love how this one turned out with just the green and the black. So now moving on to card number 4, I'm using a sketch from Mojo Monday. This is number 520. This is a fun sketch with all of those different elements on it. And this is actually the first time I'm using this sketch. I always like to try new sketches here and there. So I'm using some orange polka dot paper for the background, and again some more of this black paper with those really thin wavy lines. Obviously I like those a lot. And then I have some bolder paper with the really colorful large polka dots. Whenever I'm combining multiple pattern papers, I try not to have too many busy designs because then they compete with one another. So having some of those muted or tone-on-tone patterns mixed with those busy designs balances out the card nicely. For this sentiment on my card, I'm going to actually put it on that short, wide banner. Instead of having the little bling on that banner, this is where I'm going to put my sentiment. So this is a fun sentiment. It has Candy Please, and you'll see why, because I'm going to use the little jack-o'-lantern bucket, little candy basket. And then for that thinner strip coming out of the wider banner, I'm using some of Queen Company's glitter foam. So this is nice because it's self-adhesive. and you can still run it through your die cut machine, and it even adds that nice stitch detail. So since it is going, the little sentiment piece is going on top of that foam, there is a little bit of dimension, so I'm just going to put thin pieces of foam tape on the outside edges. That way it's all nice and even on the card. So now I'll go ahead and build my little shaker. But since I don't want black in the background, I went and put the piece of foam, put it on some of the pattern paper, and then I'm just doing a quick fussy cut all around the edge. This is where the new outline dies would make that step just a little bit quicker, because you could just cut it out with your die cut machine. But if you don't have the new dies, since they don't have them for the older kits, you can still just do that quick fussy cut. I used some more of the orange glitter paper for that handle of the candy bucket. Now I'll go ahead and fill up my little jack-o'-lantern with all of the different toppings. I wanted to have a little extra sparkle. And just a warning on these little stars, they're really staticky. So they do tend to sort of jump out, and then they also kind of attach to the acetate when you're trying to put it on. You could use some anti-static powder, and that would probably cut down on a little bit of the static, but it still just worked fine for me. So now you can build the little face on your jack-o'-lantern bucket. And these pieces are very tiny, so I am using my little jewel picker tool, adding some glue directly on the pieces, and then attaching them to the acetate. So I'll just hold that all in place for a few minutes with my acrylic block. And now it's time to pull out that bling again. So for this card, I'm using some of the lollies. I have some of the bubbles, and then again, the solid black goosebumps. I love trying to choose the bling that coordinates nicely with the pattern papers. So there is my finished card. Now moving on to card number 5. And for the next couple cards, I'm not going to use a card sketch at all. But for this card, I'm using several of the foundation dies. So there are 2 different sets, sets 1 and set 2. And I couldn't tell you which one's better than the other because I use them both equally. They both have great dies included. Makes it super easy to just design your card. So I have a wide banner and then a couple of this narrower banners. I guess it's not the really small ones. And then I'm also using the scallop circle and then the circle die. And these all have that nice faux stitching. So I just staggered the banners so you could just see a little bit of each of them. Put that nice circle die in the middle. And now I want to stamp the sentiment directly on the card, and I could just do it, but I decided to play it safe this time. Use my mini MISTI just in case I didn't get a great impression, which I did need to actually ink it up one more time. This is a really fun sentiment. Would a bad witch wear shoes this fabulous? Which currently doesn't make any sense, but I will show you in just a minute. So I'll go ahead and put my card front onto a card base before I start building my shaker. And this one is so fun. It's a witch's shoe. So it also has the die so you can cut out her leg, and then it has the little lace part of the shoe. And so I decided to use some of the glitter foam to cut out the outline of the shoe. Now for behind the shoe, I'm actually just going to have the black pattern paper, since you're not going to see a lot of it anyway once I fill it up with all these little shaker toppings. So I wanted a lot of sparkle and a lot of color in her shoe. So use several different toppings. Again, some of those stars, very staticky, but look at that beautiful shine. So even though I'm using the glitter foam for the outline of the shoe, since the glitter foam is all self-adhesive, I am still going to use some glue, some liquid glue, just because I want to be sure it's going to stay in place. I'm always worried that some of the parts of my cards are going to fall apart for the recipient, and that would just be very sad. but it is self-adhesive, so you could go without. I haven't really tried to not have it on there. Now I did change my mind on what color for this. I guess it's maybe the tongue of the boot. I thought the black was just a little too dark, so I switched it to this lighter purple color. And then I'm adding some of the trio trims in the black, so I could add a little tie, a little bow on the top of her boot. I was trying to lace the rest of the holes up, and I didn't like the look, so I decided just to stick with that top hole and adding the bow. I'll just add some adhesive behind there. And I did use a little bit of foam dimension simply because that twine does pop it up slightly along with that glitter foam. So I wanted it nice and even. I don't want any parts lopsided on the card, so I just looked to see which parts needed a little bit extra. And then I'm also going to use some of the red line tape simply because it's going to be adhered on top of the glitter foam. Sometimes when you glue things on top of a glitter or a specialty cardstock, they don't seem to hold quite as nicely. So I have lots of different adhesives to make sure it's all going to stay in place. So I'm pulling out the bling, have some more of the lollies, I have some glitter globes, and then also those black goosebumps. And then I did add a black jelly gem and then a purple bubble. So it's kind of odd I used 5 different bling this time instead of repeating any of them. But I love how this turned out. Super colorful, and it's so cute with the witch's foot there. Now moving on to card number 6. So again, I'm not going to use a sketch, but I will be creating a scene. And this is going to be a nighttime scene. I chose some more of that black wavy paper for the nighttime sky. And then I have some of the green polka dot paper for the grass. I used a stitched hillside die and then also a stitched circle die for the moon. And then for the trees, I actually used the tree die that's included in the Holidays Christmas kit. I'm trying to think if that was the right name for those. So I just used the inside portion. So this would be the part where the little shakers are. So I wanted them to just be the silhouette for nighttime. So I have 3 of them cut out. I'm just staggering them so they look like they're maybe different heights or different distances. But then I tucked them behind that stitched hillside. So I'm going to use my mini MISTI again so I can stamp that sentiment and not mess up my card. So even though this is going to be on a little more of the scarier side, since I'm going to add a tombstone on this card, I didn't want it to have that real dark feel. I'm not real big into the scary Halloween cards, so I just used one of the general sentiments. So it says, Halloween wishes to you from me. Adding lots of adhesive to the back of my card front, adding it onto my card base. So then here is that little tombstone. So again, don't have the outline die, so I just adhered that foam onto some cardstock and just cutting really close to the edge of the foam. That way I have it nice and covered. You won't see any of the background paper showing through. Put some liquid adhesive on the back and then adhere that to my card. Decided to do it a little diagonal. And so for this card, I'm using some of the silver rubble and then also the stars and then some of the, I think these are the black bats. And I'm wrong, these are actually little moons, not stars. But they're the same material as the stars from the previous cards. So they're very staticky. And I would suggest when using these to put some anti-static powder on the inside of that shaker. Because I did notice a lot of mine got stuck to the edge. So at least with the rubble and the bats in there, it still had a nice shake feel to it. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some of the bling. I didn't do a whole lot. I felt like there was already enough going on. Just put a few of them in that lower corner, but then I decided I needed to add stars to the background. So I'm just using some of the yellow jelly gems and just putting them randomly all over the sky. So so I have a nice nighttime sky. And it also has a lot of pretty sparkle. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 6. Now moving on to card number 7, and this is actually my final card. I used Operation Right Home sketch number 146. And this kit does have enough foam and acetate pieces to make 21 shaker cards, but I decided to just use one of each this time, simply because I just finished their new Halloween kit and I wanted to get this video up pretty quick before the kit sells out again. So for the background, I'm using that really specific Halloween paper, so it's a very busy design. So for the other pattern papers, I'm going to make sure to not use super busy. So I have this purple paper, a little tone-on-tone design, and also that green polka dot paper. And then there is that wavy paper again. Out of the 7 cards I made, I used it on 6 of them. So I obviously like it quite a bit. So go ahead and put my card front onto a card base. I did have to trim off a little bit on the end. I didn't have it cut perfectly. So since this rectangle piece, this green piece, is going over a couple of different layers, there's 4 layers there with the purple and the black and then also the cardstock, I want to make sure that that green piece is nice and even on the card. So I did add just a little extra cardstock behind that top portion of the green paper. So I'm going to have the back of the coffin with some of this light purple. Did the same thing, just adhered it to the cardstock and then fussy cut right up to the edge. Adhered that onto the card using some liquid adhesive, and then I'm going to fill that with some jelly gems, some more of the bat, and then a bunch of the stars. And I felt like I should have filled this coffin quite a bit more, simply because of where I ended up placing my sentiment. You just can't see a lot of it if you hold the card upright. And you'll see that later in the end photos. So I'll just attach that frame to the coffin. And then for my sentiment, I'm going to stamp it on some more of this light gray cardstock. And there are some of the darker sentiments included in the kit. Again, I went for more of just a generic Halloween. So it does have a very frightful and delightful Halloween. And I'm just going to cut some fishtails on the end of each side, layer that on some black cardstock. And then I'm going to adhere that right on top of that lower portion of the coffin. So it kind of lines up with that banner in the background. So this is where I really noticed I should have added just a little more shaker toppings. For embellishments for the card, I pulled out those star foundation dies again, cut them out in some different colors of the glitter foam. So since this is self-adhesive, real easy to adhere to the card, you just pull off the backing. And then I'm going to add that small little banner in that upper right-hand corner of the card. Felt like it just needed a little something up there. And now all of the bling. So this time I'm just using the black goosebumps and then some of the yellow jelly gems. So it's a super colorful card with all of those Halloween colors. So when I was photographing this card, this is where I really noticed a lot of the toppings just kind of stuck to the side, and then I didn't have enough to go over the sentiment. So laying it down, you could definitely get a better view of all those beautiful shaker toppings. So here's just a quick recap of the 7 cards I made using Queen Company's Fright Fest Halloween kit. There are very limited quantities of this kit currently. Their Halloween kits are very popular and sell super fast. There's also the new Hocus Pocus kit. So if you haven't seen that, I will add links to all of the products along with their new Halloween kit in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.